Alright guys, so I'm driving around in my new, to me, BMW E46 M3. So I bought this car in Louisville, Kentucky. I just happened to be in Kentucky visiting my sister, and I've been looking for a E46 M3 for a while. This one just so happened to pop up on Marketplace in just a few minutes before I saw it. And in fact, I almost missed the car. A guy beat me to it. The guy I bought it from had only had the car for, I think, just a few weeks. He bought it from a dealership, kind of on a whim. He wasn't really a car guy, but just a few days after he bought it, it started having some SMG issues, so he decided to sell it. He did put the SMG issues in the ad. He wasn't trying to hide anything. When he went to sell the car, it started acting up even worse than it had, and it wouldn't even start. But when the other guy was looking at the car, they started it up, let it idle for a while, and I guess things just warmed up, and it got stuck in first gear. So after they killed it and turned it back on, they couldn't get it into neutral to start the car. So that guy bowed out of the sale. I came and looked at it anyway, even though I couldn't hear it. And I told him, like, look, if you can get it to start, then I'll buy it. We let it sit for a few hours, and he called me. He's like, hey man, I got it to start. I'm like, all right, great. So we made a deal, and I brought the car home from Kentucky. I was really pumped when I got the car because it's really the best deal I found, even with having SMG issues and a few other issues I'll talk about in a minute. The whole reason why I wanted to buy this car was to swap it to a manual anyway. The SMG cars are much cheaper than the manual version. This car does have a salvage title also, which kept the price down, but it has been fixed pretty well. There's some missing plastic in the front. It must have been a front end collision. And it's got a few other things that I want to address. If just looking at the car, you wouldn't be able to tell. But I really think this is, if not the cheapest, one of the cheapest running, driving E46 M3s on the road. On top of that, it had good tires. It had practically new brakes. But there were still a few things that I needed to address before I was able to drive it around. Number one was subframe issues. If you know anything about these cars, you know that they have a lot of subframe issues. And it's really not the subframe, it's where the rear subframe attaches to the chassis of the car. They've been known to form cracks around where the bolts go and where it bolts to the chassis. So this car did have the subframe reinforcements welded in at some point in its life, but there was still a ton of damage to the rear panel of the car that the subframe attaches to. There was broken spot welds all the way back through the trunk floor, and I even found broken spot welds on the package tray up top behind the rear seats. Really, if there's one thing I regret about buying this car, it is I didn't check out the subframe like I should have. So if you're looking to buy an E46 M3, definitely look at the where the rear subframe attaches to the car. It's called the rear axle carrier panel, or RACP panel. The panel can literally be falling out of the car, which is pretty much how mine was. Actually, that's how it was. So on top of the chassis issues with the car, I had a little bit of rust in the rear floor wells and in the rockers behind the plastic rocker trim. That was the first thing I fixed. I made some patch panels and fixed all the rust, and then I worked on doing the subframe. I didn't want the subframe to have any issues after I fixed it, especially since I planned on getting a lot of track time and hard driving on this car. Fix all the cracks. I had to take the panel out, fix everything, put it back in, weld it in. I did a lot of seam welding and stitch welding where the panels go together. What the factory used just spot welds. A lot of those were broken. So I pretty much seam welded the whole rear chassis of the car. Then on top of the seam welding, I did a ton of reinforcement. Really, the problem with the cracking is that it's not tied into the frame rails of the chassis good. So I made topside reinforcements that tied everything in, the subframe bolts directly to the structure I built. And then on top of that, I went completely overkill. I tied all of that in with round tube to the shock towers, and that's really, it's the start of a roll cage also. So I'm not going to fully cage this car, but I do want to do at least a half cage and probably some door bars, because I do plan on tracking the car, and I want it to be safe and I want it to be stiff. So if you want to see how I did that, there's going to be a video of that complete process coming up very soon. That includes the rust fix, the the subframe fix and all of the subframe reinforcements. So check that out. It should be up soon if it's not out already. So the next step in building this car was to swap in the manual transmission. I did drive it around a little bit with the SMG, even with the subframe issues. I love rolling my own gears. I love hitting the clutch pedal, heel toe downshifting, all that good stuff, and I really miss that because it's been a while since I've had a manual car that was fun to drive. The whole point of having this car was to have fun driving and learn and hone my driving skills, so it had to have a manual gearbox. And again, on the manual, I did film the entire process, so if you're wanting to see how I did my SMG to manual swap, there will be a video of that coming out very soon if it's not out already, so go check that out. So why did I get an E46 M3 in the first place? And if you've been around the channel some, you may have noticed both me and Wesley are no strangers to old broken down BMWs. So it started with my E34 525i. I bought that car a few years ago and then ended up selling it to Wesley. You may have seen it on the channel. After I sold that car to Wesley, I got an E39 540i with a 6-speed. I loved that car, but I ended up selling it. After I sold that car and Wesley got rid of the E34, he got a 540i 6-speed just like mine, and we've also worked on it some on the channel. So I guess it's no secret that we love old BMWs. I think it stems, for me at least, back to the old Need for Speed Most Wanted game, where the hero car of that game was an E46 M3, albeit the GTR version. But I just loved that car. That was my dream car when I was a kid. As I got older, I started noticing just these normal M3s, and I thought, wow, that's actually a really nice car to drive. So really the E46 M3 is sort of like a perfect balance between the two cars I had previously. So it's similar size to the E34, but it's got the power and modern amenities of the E39, but the power delivery is more similar to the E34. So it's really some of the best characteristics of both of those cars wrapped into one package, only it's a two-door, which is really a plus to me. I really like the look of a two-door car much better than a four-door. It's got more power than both of them, it's faster than both of them, and it handles so much better than even the E39. A lot of people say the E39 is one of the best chassis ever made, but man, this thing would blow it out of the water. It's already more capable than I am as a driver, so once my driving ability catches up to the car, then I'll think about getting something faster. And that's a good thing because if you've been following the channel, you know I'm building the Hemi swapped Conquest, and it should be much faster than this car. It'll be lighter and have at least 150, if not 200 more horsepower. That car is going to be a beast, and I didn't want to just jump into it without knowing anything about how to drive a car fast. So that's another reason why I bought this car. There are still some quirks with the car. This is a 130,000 mile, 15-year-old BMW. This is something that apparently is very common on these cars, but I didn't know about it till after I bought it. It's called the M clunk. The M clunk comes from the design of the limited slip differential. It has a lot of slack built into it, and it's supposed to be normal. I think mine's got a little more slack than normal. I've even seen a technical service bulletin from BMW that said that the clunk is there. It comes from slop in the differential, and even like, I think it's like a millimeter of radial runout in the right side axle and where the flange comes out of the differential, which I noticed that on mine. I thought I needed to rebuild the diff. I'm gonna put it in second and just let you hear what I'm talking about. That is normal in one of these. I'm still not convinced it's normal. There are a few other things I still want to do to the car. Number one is the exhaust. The sound of the exhaust on this car has always kind of been a love it or hate it thing. I'm kind of indifferent. I don't necessarily hate it. I'm not in love with it either. But the biggest problem with the exhaust on this car is there's one little window that it gets a ton of rasp. This particular car does have headers. It's probably just some cheap eBay headers, and then it goes back and it's just straight through exhaust with an X pipe and then stock muffler. So what I'm planning to do is probably replace the X pipe with a resonated X pipe, and then redo the entire section 4 rear muffler with a completely custom setup and try to make a unique sound. I've been researching and listening to pretty much every single E46 M3 exhaust. I haven't found one that I'm in love with, but I've seen some designs that I think I can improve on. So of course, if I do that, then you're going to see it on the channel. So on top of changing up the exhaust, I'd really like to swap out the wheel and tire package on the car. So right now it's got the factory 19-inch wheels, and it's a staggered setup. It's a pretty good looking wheel, but I really want 18s. That way it'll be a good bit lighter. And I'd also like a square setup so I can rotate my tires. It's really going to help with the tire wear and make the tires last a lot longer. So I think the best bang for my buck will be to find the rear 18s and get a set of 4 of those. The 18-inch wheels are a very similar design to these, so I like the way they look, and it shouldn't be too expensive. Since they're a used wheel, I should be able to pick them up on eBay or Craigslist or something like that for not too much money. So once I wear out these tires, I'll definitely be looking for a set of the rear 18s to put on all 4 corners of the car. There's a lot of wish list items that I'd like to have, but the number one thing is going to be track time and just more seat time. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video of my E46 M3. You might as well go ahead and get used to seeing this car on the channel, because it's not going anywhere anytime soon. Definitely keep an eye out for both the videos on the rear subframe and the SMG to manual swap. So if you want to see more of our projects, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. You can also check us out on social media. We're at Racing Rejects on Facebook and Instagram. Also, you can follow me on Instagram. I'm at NickFerris53. So thanks for watching. Hope to see you guys soon.